Today we are in Corona del Mar, California, which means the ocean is close by, and I'm going to start off walking here in the neighborhood, and then eventually we'll make it down to one of the supposedly beautiful beaches in this area to give you like a little hybrid video, and maybe we'll see some real estate along the way. And even though we're in California, I have a lot of Florida stories to cover, and obviously I still live in Florida, guys, so it's really important for me to stay in tune with what's going on there. And I know a lot of people watch my channel because they want to be updated on these things as well. And one interesting thing that we saw happen during the pandemic is Florida absolutely exploded. Okay, we saw so many people move to the state of Florida, you know, during the time between 2020 and really right now of 2023. One of the reasons a lot of people moved to Florida was not only for the freedom, because Florida was one of the only states that was truly open, but it was also because the cost of living was a lot cheaper. And people who lived in really expensive areas like this could easily sell one of these houses and move to Florida, pay cash for a house, and still have a few $1,000,000 in the bank. Well, those days are quickly fading away. And even though real estate is still cheaper in Florida in many cases than it is here in California, the cost of living, however, is not. I've covered numerous times on the channel of how much insurance is becoming a huge problem in Florida, and it's becoming such a big issue that it's driving some people to leave the state because it's just becoming too expensive too fast, really. And you know, right now, the average homeowner in Florida is paying almost $6,000 a year for their property insurance premium, which is triple the national average of $1,700 per year. Just from 2020 to 2021, we had over 330,000 people moved to the state of Florida. Most of those people, at least the domestic ones, came from places like New York and New Jersey, and obviously there was a lot of people that came from California as well. And besides the warm weather, you know, those are cold weather states for the most part. Another big draw for people to move there is the fact that we are a no income tax state. And for a while, that was a really big benefit. I would say it still is, but all these other expenses that it costs to live there now are quickly overtaking the benefit of the fact that, well, yeah, it's a no income tax state. Because even myself, you know, I feel that with the rising cost of living there, like, yeah, it's great that we don't have to pay state income taxes, but whatever we're not paying in state income taxes is going towards this huge increase in inflation and cost of living in the area. Now, Business Insider talked to this guy that moved to Florida 5 years ago, and when he first moved there, his homeowner's insurance premium was $7,000 a year, which was already really high. But fast forward to today, it's now $10,000 a year. So literally his insurance has been going up in the tune of about $600 every single year for the past 5 years. And, you know, it's just probably going to keep going up from here, guys, because we have so many issues with this right now in the form of too many companies pulling out of writing insurance policies in the state. And this is not going to be just exclusive to Florida. This is already happening here in California. It's starting to happen in Louisiana. Who knows where's next? My guess is probably Colorado. You know, you guys have a lot of wildfire situations over there. Who knows what the next thing these insurance companies are going to decide not to cover. We're seeing them start to pull out of places just due to the age of certain homes. Like, they can stop writing policies for whatever reason they want to if they deem it to be too risky, as long as it's not discriminatory towards you. Wow, who is buying these houses, right? Because they are so expensive. $5.8 million for this house. They listed it back in April of 2023 for 5.9, and then as of July 12th they had a contract, and who knows how much the potential buyer is under contract for, but you can bet it's probably north of 5 million, which is a lot of money. Property tax bill here is almost $35,000 a year. And here's a fun little thing to show you guys. Let me show you this real quick. Just down the street from here, literally just a few blocks away, you can rent this nice looking house for like $5,500 a month, versus if you were to buy one of these houses, you're looking at a house payment of roughly 30 grand a month, guys, and that is with a 20% down payment. So once again, like, the rent to buy ratio here is just unbelievable. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these insurance companies are losing a ton of money. In fact, Hurricane Ian, when that hit last September in 2022, That storm cost about $60 billion in just insured losses, guys. That's not even including uninsured losses, because you got to think that even though people carry insurance, there's no guarantee that they're going to get all of the money that they're supposed to get, or maybe they're underinsured. So, you know, they need $500,000 worth of insurance, but they only have $250,000. So there might have been a $500,000 damage to a home, but somebody might only come out with $250,000 in insured losses, right? So the actual amount that people lost in terms of money and destruction is far higher than the $60 billion number. And the reality is, you know, dealing with these insurance companies is a nightmare, because literally people are still seeking payments and still have unfunded claims from Hurricane Ian. It's estimated at least 20,000 claims just from the old insolvent United Property Casualty Insurance Company alone has 20,000 unresolved claims from Hurricane Ian. That was almost a year ago, guys. It's August 2023. So imagine having damage from some sort of storm and waiting a year and still having nothing done. You know, I mean, it's just, I don't know how anybody can live like that, to be honest. It just has to be a nightmare. And to just give you an idea of how much rates are going up besides just a number value, okay, in 2022, the average Floridian's insurance rate went up 33% compared to only 9% being the national average. So that is a huge difference. And you know, now you got the same thing happening here in California as well. You have a lot of these insurance companies that don't want to write policies anymore in areas that are prone to wildfires, you know, because that's a total loss. It's a total destruction. Everything burns down. House needs to be rebuilt from the ground, kind of like a hurricane situation. So two very destructive forces of nature, and companies are pulling out of this. And my question is, okay, if insurance companies are starting to not write policies in these areas, does that mean that no one's gonna be able to get insurance there anymore at all? And if that's the case, what kind of implications is that gonna have on the real estate market? In fact, the Citizens Insurance Company in Florida is the insurance company of last resort, okay? That's the insurance company that you can get insurance from if no other private insurance company will give you insurance, right? Well, they're so overrun with policies right now that they're actively unloading policies and forcing people to go off of Citizens. And it's estimated that Slide Insurance, the Slide Insurance Company, they're supposed to be offloading about 184,000 policies off of Citizens Insurance by this October. And the reason for this is because if Citizens becomes too large and they're insuring too many people and there is a major event and something happens, then they're not going to be able to pay the claims, guys. And what they're going to have to do is make assessments on all other types of insurance throughout the entire state to make up for the losses. So basically, there's too much risk being placed on one company, and that's where all the danger falls with this. So quick correction, Slide Insurance is supposed to take about 100,000 Citizens Insurance policies. A couple other smaller companies are supposed to pick up the difference. You have Southern Oak, they're supposed to take 25,000 policies. You have SafePoint, they're supposed to take 30,000 policies. Monarch is supposed to take 10,000 policies. And then Florida Peninsula Insurance is supposed to take another 19,000 policies. So they're trying to spread the risk thinner and make it so that Citizens isn't basically insuring everybody. Whew, that is a high price to pay for an ocean view. Almost $13 million this house for sale. And they had a contract, but it must have fell through because the house is back on the market as of May 23rd, and it's been listed for sale since March of 2023. But looks like they got that first contract pretty quickly. Maybe they'll end up selling it for the price they want. But here is the crazy thing. When you look at property taxes for a house worth supposedly $13 million, the owner only paid $5,800 back in 2021. Now here's the other thing to note about the Citizens Insurance policies being dropped right now is if you're somebody that Citizens says you have an alternative and the price of that alternative insurance is within 20% or less of what you're being charged at Citizens, you have to take it. There's no choice. So it's not like you can say, well, I want to stick with Citizens because it's still cheaper. Doesn't matter, guys. Basically how this works is they're sending people letters in the mail effective October 17th that's when you're going to be forced to switch to a new company if you're somebody on that list. Now, I don't know how they're determining who is going to be forced to switch and who isn't, but the fact of the matter is people are going to have to switch insurance companies whether they like it or not, and pay up to 20% more for their yearly premiums and be taken off of Citizens. And the reason for this is because the size and the amount of people that Citizens is insuring has absolutely skyrocketed, okay? Between right now and 2019, Citizens Insurance went from insuring 419,000 policies to now 1.3 million. So the size of the amount of policies that they're writing has literally tripled in a span of 4 years, which is unsustainable, and they won't be able to sustain the losses that could potentially come if we get another Hurricane Ian situation anytime soon. In case you're wondering, the reason why Citizens Insurance is typically so much cheaper than private insurance companies is because the state of Florida has a law where they're not able to increase their premiums by more than 10% per year, but private insurance companies are not bound to this. So that's why you see such the huge price gap in Citizens Insurance versus private insurance companies. So you can pretty much bet that any insurance company right now that's willing to take a policy off of Citizens' hands is probably going to be charging close to the maximum of that 20% increase in order to take folks, because that's the only way that they're claiming that they can actually sustain any of this risk, is by basically guaranteeing that they're going to raise people's rates, because there's no other way to go about it, guys. They need to raise your rates in order to cover the cost of future claims. That's what they claim anyways, right? But I don't want to get into all that again when it comes to insurance basically being a scam and all this, but think what you want about it. But going back to what I was saying earlier, if you're having more and more areas that are basically uninsurable, or it's coming to the point where, yeah, you can get insurance, but it's so expensive, like who's gonna buy in the areas? And what is that gonna do to the price of real estate, guys? Like, it's my first impression and first thought of it is like, all right, if you're in an area that's completely uninsurable and no one will write a policy, that means you're not gonna be able to get a mortgage, which means if you can't get a mortgage, then no one's gonna be buying there for the most part unless they're rich cash buyers. And even if people are still interested in areas like that, then you're likely going to be looking at real estate prices coming down significantly in order for people taking on that additional risk of not being able to obtain insurance. But so far, using Florida as the example of this, like, there's not anybody that's just getting completely dropped, like saying you're uninsurable. That is happening here in California, but rather what's happening is there's insurance companies saying, well, we'll still cover you, we'll still write you a policy, but this is our price. And then, you know, you get that sticker shock when you see just how much it's going to cost. Now, here's another interesting thing that I saw recently about Florida. Supposedly, Miami-Dade County lost 80,000 residents during the pandemic boom years. And this is such a strange story, if you ask me, because the census numbers are what's telling us this is the case. But as a resident, somebody that lives in Miami full time and was there during this whole pandemic boom, like, it is not noticeable at all that we lost 80,000 people. In fact, the city feels busier and fuller than ever, guys. In fact, before I left for this trip, I just couldn't wait to get out of there. Between the excruciating heat that we've been dealing with, and combine that with, you know, just the crazy amount of traffic, you know, taking 15 minutes just to get out of my neighborhood oftentimes, it just got old, you know, and it feels good to be out of that situation for now and be somewhere fresh and see different things. According to the census data, between 2020 and 2022, Miami-Dade County lost 80,000 residents. And part of the disconnect there could be this. Like, I live in Miami Beach, right, which is a very expensive and popular area to live because it's right by the beach, just like where we're at right now. Well, I think what probably happened is people who live in those areas, the population actually might have increased because, you know, a lot of people with money were coming from these, you know, rich areas like I discussed earlier, and can afford to pay for real estate in those premium areas. But what that does is it drives up the cost in the lesser expensive areas as well, because people who live in Miami Beach looked for cheaper real estate in other parts of Miami, and it kind of pushes out the people who are even poorer than them, and so on and so forth. It has that ripple effect. And so what I think probably happened is you saw a lot of people in the poorer areas of Miami get forced to leave because the cost of housing just went up too high. And then in, the really expensive and more desirable areas like where I live actually saw an uptick in population. You see more people there than ever before, because you have people buying all these expensive beachfront condos, rents doubled, everything just went completely insane over there. So probably what's going on here with this is, my guess is Miami sort of lost people in its cheaper areas. The most desirable and most expensive areas actually see more people there because that's where a lot of these people are attracted to living in. And really it seems like all this is showing no signs of slowing down, at least for now, because you have so many people seemingly still moving into the area. I see all the time new people coming in from other areas, even to this day, and I just feel like as a resident, like, when is it ever gonna end, because it's getting to the point where literally the infrastructure of Miami cannot handle the increase of the new population, guys. In case you've ever been to Miami, or specifically Miami Beach where I live, it's a very small town, okay? And when you throw in, hundreds or thousands of new people into the mix and their cars to go along with it, and motorcycles and everything else, it creates congestion like you wouldn't believe. Because unlike here, we're surrounded by water. You have nothing but drawbridges everywhere, and it makes it very difficult to move around when you're pretty much surrounded by traffic. And the other way that we know that Miami is still on fire when it comes to housing is developers, guys. You have developers right now that are still trying to buy out all these old condo buildings. And there's a whole write-up about this in The Real Deal, which I'm not going to get fully into, but basically the idea here is that pretty much every single old building that you see across Miami and Miami Beach is being targeted right now as a potential tear down, buyout, and redevelop into something very expensive. This is definitely a really cool beach over here, I gotta say. And I can see why people are flocking to this spot. Water's nice and cool, it's clear, and it's such a beautiful day out here to be at the beach. I'm a little bit jealous. So basically the idea here is with these condo buyouts is it seems like it's just gonna be a matter of time before pretty much all of the old buildings that are in need of a lot of deferred maintenance are probably going to get bought out by some sort of developer. It might not be this year, it might not be next year, but probably within the next decade or so, you're going to see this happen, guys. And the reason is because they can make so much money from this. Think about it. If you have a developer that can pay somebody, $300,000-$400,000 for a condo, and then turn around and sell a condo there for like $5 million, that's a huge profit margin that these guys stand to make. This is exactly what we're seeing happening right now in numerous different buildings. In fact, a few right in my own neighborhood are receiving buyout offers as we speak. And there's one building that I shared with you guys in past videos that used to be called the La Costa, and they're tearing it down right now. In fact, by the time I get back to Miami, it might already be completely demolished. And now the building right next to it, they're trying to offer them buyouts as well. And that was rumored that it was going to happen, and it is in fact happening. You have two developers targeting this building right now because it's prime real estate. It's all oceanfront properties, very old buildings, like 60 years old, that haven't kept up with the maintenance over the years. Florida is facing big changes when it comes to its strictness on the condo laws. You have all these new requirements that are going to be in place by 2025 for all these buildings to have full reserves. All these buildings need to make sure that all the repairs necessary to keep the building up to code are done. And that's going to cost a fortune, especially for buildings that haven't been keeping up with their maintenance and repairs over the past 40, 50 years. This is going to be a big deal. And, as somebody that lives there, guys, I feel like split about it. On the one hand, it's a good thing to get rid of all these old buildings that could be potentially dangerous and don't offer a lot of value today in terms of like resale, like you buy this place and then you get stuck in this situation where you got nothing but repairs and special assessments for the next 20 years, and who wants to deal with that? But unfortunately, the alternative is that if they actually perform a buyout and everybody decides to sell, then they tear it down and you get nothing but a huge new building there that offers units that are 15, 20 times more expensive than the old units, and no one can afford it. I have no problem with getting rid of the old and bringing in the new, especially when it comes to building codes and being able to withstand the flooding and the hurricanes and the severe weather we have in Florida, but not at the expense of making everything extremely unaffordable, guys. Like, yeah, it's good for me. It makes my property value go up, but it also increases the cost of living as well, It makes property values go up, so it means insurance is going to continue to go up because replacement costs are going up. When your property value goes up, you're seeing increases in property taxes as well. So for somebody like me that's been in Florida for 15 years, I have seen the increase in cost of living go absolutely haywire, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. So back to like the beginning points of this video, I wonder how long people are going to continue pouring into Florida thinking that they're going to be getting a much better deal than where they live right now. Because if you crunch the numbers, you might actually be surprised that you're not getting any sort of a deal. It might end up actually costing you more, depending on where you decide to move to in Florida and which state and city you're coming from. So if I were you, if you were considering a move to Florida in 2023 or 2024, I highly suggest you look at how much you're going to be paying for homeowners insurance, how much your property taxes are going to go up to after you purchase your potential house, and how much is the local inflation rate running at right now. All these different things that people probably don't think about that add up to the cost of living in Florida by quite a bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a super cool location to come down to this beach and show you a little bit of the neighborhood. And if you did enjoy it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.